Okay, so beef pho is the one that most of you guys would know about and probably have eaten, but there's also chicken pho. Don't leave the chicken pho out because actually it's way quicker to make at home and way easier. So that's what we're going to do today. And to start off with, what we want to do is create some aromatics, some nice roasted aromatics. I'm going to start off with some onion, and I just want to cut that in half. And that goes straight into the pan. I still want the skin on. I want to get some of that sort of charry flavor on this. So into a dry frying pan. And then I want the same thing with my ginger. I'm just going to cut that in half and get that straight into the pan, skin on as well. Now you just want to be turning these over every so often. I want them in here for a good 10 minutes at least. You've got to be a little patient here. I really want some nice dark color on my onion skin, and on the ginger as well. So I've got some cinnamon stick and some star anise that's going in. Just move that pan around, get everything nice and toasty. Okay, so the color is looking good on these, and this beautiful fragrant aroma in my kitchen now, which is so good. Now I'm going to get these out onto a chopping board, and I just want to peel off this first layer of onion skin. Doesn't matter if a little bit of skin sticks to the onion, I just don't want all of that skin on there. And now to help these aromatics release even more of their flavor, I'm just going to slice them in half again to get some of those juices going out into our broth. Now chicken, I've got a whole chicken that just goes straight into a large pot. Okay, now you want enough water to cover the chicken and give you lots of nice soupy broth. And now the onion and the ginger and those lovely toasted spices. And now just a little bit of seasoning here at the beginning so that we can get some nice flavor infused into our chicken. We'll do a little bit more seasoning at the end. I'm going to add some fish sauce. And then because I don't want to color the stock too much or have too much of a strong fish sauce flavor, I'm also going to season this with some salt, a good teaspoon. Now the secret here, guys, is that we don't want to overboil or rapidly boil this chicken. What we want is a nice gentle simmer, and that will give us the best chicken and the best broth for our finished dish. So after a few minutes, I can see that the water is just starting to barely bubble. That's the kind of simmer that we want. What you'll find is you'll get a little bit of kind of cloudy, scummy stuff that'll rise up to the surface. And at this point, you want to just take yourself a ladle and scoop that off as it rises to the top. And then I just keep like a bowl of water handy nearby just to clean off my spoon each time before I go back in there. And you can keep doing this as the chicken cooks, and that way you'll end up with a nice clear broth at the end. And now this is the kind of gentle simmer that I want to keep going for another hour. So I'm going to turn this down just a little bit and let that simmer away. Okay, so this is smelling amazing. I love the smell of the star anise and the ginger, and I'm just doing one final scoop of some of that stuff that's risen to the top, just to make sure we've got a really nice, clean, clear broth. Okay, time to get my chicken out, drain off as much of that soup as possible. And now I'm just going to start slicing up this chicken. And look at all that glorious chicken. So this is the plus to cooking the broth the way we did. You could simmer the broth for hours and that would be great. You'd get more chicken flavor, but it would also mean that the chicken meat itself is kind of unusable because it gets quite tasteless. By just simmering it gently for an hour, we've got beautiful, tasty, moist chicken and a really nice chicken broth. Okay, now for the soup itself. I just want to strain that delicious broth. And look at that lovely color. Now pour that stock back into a clean saucepan, and here's where we do our final seasoning adjustments. So let me taste the broth first and see what's going on. It's so delicious. You really get a beautiful, just fragrant whisper of that star anise, and I can taste all that chickeny goodness in there. So good. What we do need is a little more salt. Now, because we did just start with water, remember, you need to quite heavily season this broth to really bring out the flavors. And then I'm also going to add just a little bit of fish sauce as well. Oh yes, right on. That is tasting miraculous. So now let's get on with the rest of our noodle bowl. So I've just got some rolling boiling water, and I'm going to add my rice stick noodles. Okay, these noodles are just cooked. Don't overcook them because that's when you get gluggy noodles. I'm going to drain those off, and time to assemble. So the noodles go in, and then I want some chicken. I like a mixture of white and dark meat. That's just my preference. Fine pieces of onion to sort of spread those out. And a really decent handful of finely chopped spring onion. time to get that steaming soup into our bowl. Ah, look at that, so satisfying. And there you go, a chicken noodle soup you'll be coming back to time and time again. Now let me show you how I like to eat this bowl. So I grab myself some bean shoots and then a really decent helping of Thai basil leaves. Let's pick those straight into there. And then a good squeeze of lime juice and a few little slices of chili. And then you've got to give everything a mix. That soup is so good. And those noodles. Perfect. So the first thing we're going to do is make a super awesome broth. Now we're going to use store-bought stock, but I'm going to add a few extra bits and pieces to make it extra special. The first thing is we're going to add some fresh chicken to the mix. So I've got some chicken thighs here. Feel free to use breast though if you would like, because we're going to use the chicken meat later on in the soup. So I'm going to add a little bit of salt to my chicken. Always be seasoning every step of the way. And then into a hot pan, I'm just going to add the smallest amount of oil. We're going to get a little bit of chicken fat. I just need the oil to just get everything started and sizzling in there. Okay, so chicken goes in. I want that skin side down. I'm just going to season the other side. Now just let those guys sizzle away until we get some beautiful color on the outside of that chicken, because the color, my friends, means that we've got flavor. Ah, look at that amazing color. And look at all that gorgeous chicken fat that we're getting as well. Ah, this is how we make a store-bought stock, truly magic. Plus, we get some chicken to add to our soup at the end, so it's win-win. So now I'm gonna add my chicken stock. And now for some extra flavor. So I'm gonna grab some whole spring onions. I've also got some sliced spring onions. I'm gonna use those at the end. These whole ones are gonna flavor our broth. So I wanna put those down on my chopping board and just give them a little bit of a bruise with my knife handle. This is going to help release more of the flavor quicker. All about getting things done quicker if I can in the kitchen. And then I want some ginger. Oh, even just the smell of ginger just makes me feel like I'm getting a nice hug. Don't even bother peeling this one because I'm going to take it out anyway at the end. And then this is a little secret ingredient of mine, dried shrimp. So you can get it from an Asian grocer. These guys will add an extra little bit of umami and savory flavor to the broth. You won't be able to taste the shrimp, but you'll just get that extra boost of flavor. So I'm gonna add those in. Now you wanna bring everything up to a simmer and then pop a lid on. And you just need to let that cook 20-25 minutes until your chicken is cooked through. Now the other thing we need to do is thicken our soup broth. In restaurants you'll find the thickness of this soup varies from very, very sort of thick and gluggy to a very thin watery broth. I like something sort of in between. So I'm using this amount of cornstarch, which gives me just the right amount of thickness that I like. And then I'm adding just the teensiest little pinch of turmeric. And this is just gonna give us a really lovely golden color. And then I want some white pepper as well. And then mix that with some water. This makes sure that we don't get any lumps when we add cornstarch into our soup. Okay, now for the egg part of our egg drop soup, we just need a few eggs into a bowl and then just whisk those until they're well combined. So this has been smelling amazing. Let's have a look at what we've got. Oh, that smell, the ginger, the spring onion, oh, so beautiful. I'm gonna take out my chicken. I'm gonna save that for later. We can shred it up and add it to the soup. And now I'm gonna take out my aromatics. And the good thing about keeping them in quite large pieces, I don't need to strain the stock. I can just pull these out. Now, time to thicken everything up. So I've got my cornstarch mixture. Pour that in. Now just let this simmer away for a few minutes. It'll thicken up ever so slightly. I don't want it too gluggy. I just want enough body to hold the egg once we put it in. So this is the kind of texture that we're after. And while the soup is gently bubbling away, just drizzle in this egg so that we get some nice little fine shreds of egg through our soup. Just let it set for a couple of seconds and then start moving your spoon through the egg so that we don't get any big clumps. Now our chicken from earlier, just pop that in. And here's where we're going to adjust our seasoning. So this will all depend on how salty your chicken stock was that you started off with. So let's just see how we're going. What I love about that, I can just taste the ginger, just taste that beautiful savory spring onion. So good. I am gonna add a little bit more salt. Also add soy sauce if you like. I like to keep this a really nice bright yellow color, so I'm just gonna stick with the salt. And now one final little touch of special, just a little drizzle of sesame oil. Really takes the flavor up a notch. Okay, so all we have to do now is ladle this into bowls. And then just a little sprinkling of spring onion on top. And there you go, guys. Egg drop soup, even better than your local restaurant. That's what I reckon anyway. So good. So the first thing we're going to do is turn a store-bought stock into something super magical. A little bit of oil and some onion. And we're basically building up a whole bunch of spicy, yummy, umami flavor. And I just want these onions to really soften up. You must always be patient when you're sizzling onions. We really want that soft, sweet, savory flavor, not raw onion flavor. So my onions have turned translucent. Time to add my garlic. And then I've got some slices of ginger here. I've sliced them really large because I want to fish them out at the end. And they're just going to infuse their lovely gingeriness into our broth. And now for some kimchi. So you can find kimchi in most supermarkets these days. Look for it in the fridge section. And I've got here the kimchi cabbage itself. And then my little tip for you always is to just steal a little bit of the kimchi juice out of the packet as well and put a little bit of that in whatever dish that you're cooking, a stir fry or anything like that, because it's got loads of flavour. So I'll pour that in there. Okay, now the chicken. And I think for this dish, really you want the dark meat because we want everything to break down, get all gelatinous and soft, and we want that really intense flavour as well. And this is going to simmer for a while, so breasts will dry out a little bit. And I've also kept these pieces on the bone because I think that the bone just tends to add a little bit more of that gelatinous texture to the soup. We want that chicken to get all mixed up in there with everything else. And then we want some soy sauce. Okay, now time for the stock. So if you've got a beautiful homemade stock at home, please go ahead and use it. I'm happy to doctor up a store-bought stock always if it's going to save me a little bit of time, if I'm having a weeknight dinner. And to be honest, you're adding so much flavor with this kimchi that you won't even notice. And one other little secret ingredient that I have up my sleeve is Korean gochujang, and that's a fermented chili paste. It is savory, full of umami, and it's not super spicy, which is why I like to use a whole heap of it because it adds so much extra flavor and such a lovely color too. So the easiest way to do this is to just pop a ladle into your soup, and I'm gonna just dissolve that paste because it's quite thick in that ladle, rather than just sort of having it float around in there. Mix that through. Now just bring that up to a gentle simmer and then put the lid on, and I want that to keep going and simmering away for about an hour until that chicken is full tender. So let's have a look and see what's been happening in our pot. And that is seriously magical. That fragrance is amazing. So I know a classic ramen broth would take 8 hours, 9 hours, but we're doing a shortcut version today. So this is still gonna have a huge amount of flavor, and just because, you know, I like to do things a little bit extra, we're gonna get it roasty and toasty and really lovely and golden in the oven. So I'm gonna pull out my chicken pieces. Okay, and we're gonna add even more flavor by just basting these guys with a little bit of sesame oil. And then just a little sprinkling of salt. Now pop these under a really hot oven grill for about 10 minutes or until they're beautifully golden. Okay, now remember those ginger pieces that we put in at the beginning? I'm just going to take those out. And as always, I'm going to check my broth for seasoning. That flavor, the kimchi, the spicy gochujang, incredible. Okay, so that chicken has undergone a magical transformation. It is beautiful and golden. Now, I'm gonna get it onto my chopping board. Okay, now this is the part you don't wanna miss, guys. This chicken is literally just falling away from the bone. I'm not even touching it with that knife almost. It's just coming straight off. Ridiculous, joyful, all of those things. Okay, these noodles are looking good. And of course, because it's ramen, I have giant bowls small bowl just wouldn't do. Now back to this amazing broth, and I just want to scoop out some little chunks of kimchi for each bowl. Make sure everyone gets a little portion. And now that glorious soup. Now of course I want some of these chicken pieces, and then the final touches. Egg and some spring onion. Ugh. Now I am ready for the couch.